Okay. Um,
Gonna close all my food delivery apps. Because who needs that distraction
Focus.
right now?
Yeah. I think, not think, I'm pretty sure Donut Friend is still open because apparently it is essential. Mm-hmm. And so is Joy. And so is Kitchen Mouse, actually, that I was surprised by.
That's kind of weird.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Although, I think there's a thing that restaurants can be open as long as you're not allowed to go there.
Yeah. If you're doing takeout, it's fine. Like, Hippo is open. And I'm like, that's very non-essential.
I'm hungry.
Who's, like, getting their fancy pasta in these times of need?
We should. This is a great time to try Hippo. Hippo's a restaurant near us.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be, what is it, like Michelin star or something? Or it's a Michelin star chef.
It is?
Yeah.
I have not heard
A few people, wait, I'm just gonna, a few people, when I tell them I live in Highland Park, they're like, oh, have you been to Hippo? Yeah. I have not. Oh, and so is Go Get 'em Tiger. And I also think that's strange. I'm like, who's like, oh, thank goodness this coffee shop is here.
Me.
I guess so.
I suppose it doesn't matter if you're not allowed in.
Yeah. I still don't understand enough about the precautions that are being taken within restaurants. No, you're just kind of trusted that those people are wearing gloves.
I mean, I imagine it's like, and this was true with whatever, so bougie, with Pilates or places like that, where it's like, we are going to double up on because the sanitary things are things they have to do anyway.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to become like sanitary precautions in general are just going to explode after this? Like it's going to become like a Pilates room will get like sprayed down from the ceiling after every class or anything like that? No. I saw that Dior, I believe, was making hand sanitizer.
They're like parent company. Yeah.
The parent company, okay. And that's, I think, what had me be like, oh my God, the next like beauty trend is going to be like just in like sanitation. It'll be like, oh, you're so clean.
I don't see that happening more than it already has. We've talked about this, right?
I know. You're like, oh, I think that's already a thing. But actually, I would say that there's been like a trend that I think started when it was like, don't wash your hair every day. That's towards like, not like being like dirty, but there's like something about like hipsters that's kind of like,
this is all very confined to white people.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because if you're not white and you do that, you're homeless. Like you have actual problems. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Now I'm trying to think of like someone I know. Maybe. Okay. So like,
if you look all like bedraggled and stuff,
like
if you're white,
get away
people,
with
especially in
dirty.
LA, is like that person must be famous. And if like a person of color, like Hispanic or but like bedraggled, people are like crossing the street. I'm not making this up.
No, no, I don't think you are. Where were we?
Because the other, okay.
What?
No.
What?
I was going to say, because especially in this country, and especially when it comes to Black people, there's a long, ongoing racist traditions that are connected to like bullshit about this. So,
and actually, this also makes me think of Indian like, is it cast or it's cast, right? Yeah. I never, when I was reading about it, like I was never sure if it was cast or case because of how it's spelled. Yeah, the caste system, like the untouchables, right? So yeah, I don't know if white people have that cultural history.
Somebody once told me that that East Asians called white people like the cheese eaters or something like that because people who eat dairy smell different than people who don't.
So vegans smell better?
Well, don't smell like cheese eaters.
You're a cheese eater.
Or cheese people or something like that.
Oh.
Because they don't really do dairy. And my ex, like when he ate ice cream, like I could smell it.
What?
For sure.
Like the dairy was coming out of his pores?
Kind of like that, yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. Does that mean, because you know they're like, everyone has a distinct smell. Mm-hmm. And they make it sound like you're born with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's your DNA or something. Your pheromones, right? And this is...
I thought they talk about it in a way that's more about hormones. No?
Yeah. What's the difference between like a pheromone and a hormone?
Well, I mean that hormones change and fluctuate and stuff.
Oh. Okay, well, like the way I always heard it was like, and I'm thinking specifically in terms of when people are attracted to one another, there's like a distinct smell. And the way that people talk about it, it's like that person just is that smell. Like that's their natural scent. And either you're attracted to it or not. And this is making me think actually depending on your diet or like all sorts of things,
your
scent would change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more about compatibility. You can smell compatibility. I don't think one person's smell never changes. Like I don't think it exists in a vacuum on its own like that. Because the same smell to me is not necessarily going to smell the same to you.
Yeah.
And that has more to do with compatibility and like I think you kind of can't be attracted to someone if you don't like how they smell.
Yeah, but what if like what you're not attracted to is just their diet?
Could be. But that's still like what they are. You are what you eat.
Well, yeah.
So, like,
well, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm
then
like,
yeah, you're interacting
like, mostly
with
we're just like building blocks.
I don't think there's anything super native about it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are obviously also genealogical elements to it. Like my grandfather on my dad's side, he would come and visit us in school in the mountains, and it was so frightfully cold for him, and he hated the cold so much that he like refused to have a bath, refused to have a bath for like a whole week, and he would smell like nothing, like roses. My dad is like that too. Yeah, my dad, I've never smelled my dad in my life. He smells like nothing. My mom, on the other hand, I can smell.
What is going on?
People just have different, like, chemical fucking makeups.
So some people are just...
I mean, yes. Like, my dad and my dad's dad are very clear examples, I feel like, of this.
There's a lot of people I've met that I just don't like their smell. I don't think I like smells in general.
What do you mean?
That's a weird thing to say. I don't like when people smell. Like,
smell like anything?
Well, people's smell is like very personal. This makes me think of boundaries.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's just so intimate to smell someone that I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be smelling you right now.
Way to like moralize an animal instinct.
Wait, what do you mean?
Smelling is part of like how we navigate the
But it's
world.
very intimate.
Only because you
To be
say
like,
it.
whoa, I smell you.
Why is that different than oh, I see you?
It feels like I'm peering into their soul. Not quite that level.
I mean, that sounds like just made up. You know? Like, why is it any different than I can hear you, or I hear you, or I see you, or whatever other?
You're right. But then, like, why do we cover up our smells, you know? Like, people try to, like, manicure themselves.
Yes,
and
but
so
then that's
to be like, oh, I smell you.
Oh. So it's like you don't want to acknowledge something they're trying to hide, or they should be trying to hide.
And then, like, I have a physical reaction to it, and I, like, have to squash it. Like, I'm sure this has happened where you, like, hug someone, and you're like, it's like finding out someone, it's like seeing someone with spinach in their teeth. But you can't, like, hug someone and be like, oh, hey, did you remember the deodorant or something?
Right.
And then maybe you're smelling something that to other people is, like,
definitely
is great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
When I first met someone, I couldn't tell. I was like smelling something very strongly, and I was like, I can't tell if I'm like offended or if I love it. It was very like.
Did that continue, or did you
No.
Did you go to one side or the other?
I went to one side. What do you think? I would never like hang around someone I didn't like the smell of. Never.
Really?
Never.
That I would not spend time with anyone.
That's my whole problem is that I just like form relationships based on smell. It's like it's cool that we have nothing to talk about, right?
I must smell really good.
Why?
Because apparently I haven't been exiled yet.
From?
Your vicinity?
Oh yeah, you don't smell.
Okay.
Not to me anyway.
Okay, good.
I haven't like.
Good.
I mean,
let me know. There starts to be something.
No, I'm not going to be like shame. Shame.
I don't know.
I mean, because we're all messed up about it too.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, but that's a lot of what you're saying. I think is more about how we separate. Like it's things that we do. Like all the unspeakable things or things that you're like supposed to not acknowledge or like.
This is also making me think of like a lot of things I have around body functions. Yeah, that like bodies smell. That's okay. Like they're just doing their thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit insane. It's a little bit insanity inducing to want them to like be neutral or blank or wonderful or any single thing.
That's probably why I liked the movie Her. Because I was like, of course he falls in love with an application, basically. That's my ideal situation. She sounds like Scarlett Johansson without Scarlett Jo actually being in the room and potentially being human.
Yeah.
Like, what if you met Scarlett Johansson and she smelled?
She does.
It would be ruined.
Something would be ruined, but it might not be Scarlett Johansson. That's deep.
I think that's a good point.
I think we're on 9.
Yeah, we are. You want to do a recap?
Yeah, I like first liked the book last night.
Yes.
And I felt quite strongly about it, really.
Yeah.
Yes. I was kind of obsessed with that whole clusterfuck that happened when they were like crossing the bridge. That thing that made me originally be like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Then being like, oh.
Right, what is happening?
Right. That's kind of part of the point of the chaos. And that's actually much more true to life than a like narrative that's clear almost is this like thing that you're like, wait, this way. No, I heard that. Like just the yeah, there's something very. It feels. I don't think this is true necessarily, but it feels very unvarnished.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it takes a lot of skill or whatever to write that way, but there's something about it that feels. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like he's letting the chaos be or something. I don't know.
I thought like his thought. It's almost like he's in the same way. I've never read Ulysses, but you know how the whole thing about that is it's actually trying to accurately depict how human beings think, as opposed to the way that like we normally write it, which is very linear, very logical. One thought goes to the next. It's actually much more chaotic, and it felt like in the scene he was able to capture that same kind of. This is happening, and this, and this, and this, and no one has any idea what's going on. There's a cacophony.
And I cannot tell you how much I loved Prince Andrew's whole weird thing. Because that also felt so like, I don't think of that as like classic Russian hero type stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, which, you know, like, jokes on me, whatever. I might have I obviously have my own things about it, but
no, I agree. That feels very modern.
It doesn't it?
It feels very self-aware and modern that I don't associate with people back then. Even though that's.
I don't know.
It's like, what? They didn't have psychologists, so how could they know that?
Exactly.
But yeah, the thing we're talking about is Prince Andrew was he had like let everyone know about this robbery that happened on the camp, which was very bad because then it reflected badly on the whole regiment. And then he was riding beside this commander, I believe.
Yeah.
Who was supposedly angry at him. So like there's going to be a battle and Prince Andrew is instead completely preoccupied
with his own personal imagining of this conflict. Like he thinks someone's mad at him. So his whole attention basically is on the dynamic between him and this guy who he like ostensibly displeased and who he has to like either like win the favor of back or like prove himself to or something like that.
Yeah.
My stomach's made noises.
That was impressive. That was all the sea moss. Yeah, so it was, and it kept like jumping. He kept like interpreting this. It was like Bogdanich, I think that's his name. He kept interpreting everything that Bogdanich was doing very personally. He kept being like, "Oh, he's looking at me. That's because he disapproves. Oh, he looked away. That's because he doesn't care about me anymore."
Yeah, he was like weirdly reading into stuff that was clearly not about him. And even though there was a freaking war, and it was his first taste of combat, supposedly. Like, is their first interaction with, it's his first interaction with an army. And he spent it being like, kind of like, he wasn't like physically removed. So he was still like doing stuff in the battle, whatever fragment of battle that was, but he was also like in his whole it's crazy.
No, it actually was. Yeah. Yeah, it was really, but then it had the kind of thing that I was like, of course. And of course, Prince Andrew has this revelation where like, he was one of those ones who was like, I just want to go to war. And then, no, actually, this is Nicholas I'm thinking of. It was different. Anyway, I knew this was going to be in there at some point. There's like this whole romanticizing of war. And then there was this one passage where there was like a skirmish going on the bridge. And then he's looking out at the countryside. He's like, oh, to be anywhere else but here in this chaos. And suddenly, like, he appreciates life. Yeah.
But also, while at the same time being like a moment of him appreciating life, it's also like the depth of the fear,
Mm.
because he's like, literally, I want to be anywhere except where I am right now,
Yeah.
which is the total antithesis of like that like bloodlusty thing that I guess they're all performing like on the way to this conflict, and then are like when they get there.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's so much like there must be so much boredom actually leading up to it. That you're like, great, something's finally gonna happen. And then the thing happens and you're like, this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So you're caught between I don't know, you're caught. Like all of your purpose and direction as an army or as a regiment is the battle. So in so many ways, you just want that to happen. And then when it happens, you just want to be anywhere else but.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. So there was finally a battle. There was finally some war. And the bridge got destroyed, I think. The Russians are okay. No one died.
Well, most of them.
Most of them, that's right.
They
lost 2 hussars.
Yeah.
And 1 yeah. 2 hussars wounded and 1 knocked out. Oh, by the way, what's a hussar? I'm looking this up quick.
Yeah.
A hussar was a member of a class of light cavalry. Okay.
How do you pronounce it?
Hussar.
What's
a Z. It's Hungarian. The Hussars, excuse me, were one of the main types of cavalry in Poland. So I believe in here they're Hungarian. Okay. That's a hussar.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! I don't know why they have wings, but they have wings.
That's cool.
All right, chapter 9.
Mm-hmm.
Pursued by the French army of 100,000 men under the command of Bonaparte, encountering a population that was unfriendly to it, losing confidence in its allies, suffering from shortness of supplies, and compelled to act under conditions of war unlike anything that had been foreseen, the Russian army of 35,000 men, commanded by Kutuzov, was hurriedly retreating along the Danube, stopping where overtaken by the enemy and fighting rearguard actions only as far as necessary to enable it to retreat without losing its heavy equipment. There had been actions at Lambach, Amstetten, and Melk, but despite the courage and endurance, acknowledged even by the enemy, with which the Russians fought, the only consequence of these actions was a yet more rapid retreat. Austrian troops that had escaped capture at Ulm and had joined Kutuzov at Braunau now separated from the Russian army, and Kutuzov was left with only his own weak and exhausted forces. The defense of Vienna was no longer to be thought of. Instead of an offensive, the plan which, carefully prepared in accord with the modern science of strategics, had been handed to Kutuzov when he was in Vienna by the Austrian Hofkriegsrath, the sole and ominous junction with the forces that were from Russia, without losing his army as Mack had done at Ulm.
On the 28th of October, Kutuzov with his army crossed to the left bank of the Danube and took up a position for the first time with the river between himself and the main body of the French. On the 30th, he attacked Mortier's division, which was on the left bank, and broke it up. In this action, for the first time, trophies were taken: banners, cannon, and 2 enemy generals. For the first time, after a fortnight's retreat, the Russian troops had halted and after a fight had not only held the field but had repulsed the French. Though the troops were ill-clad, exhausted, and had lost a third of their number in killed, wounded, sick, and stragglers, though a number of sick and wounded had been abandoned on the other side of the Danube with a letter in which Kutuzov entrusted them to the humanity of the enemy, and though the big hospitals and the houses in Krems, converted into military hospitals, could no longer accommodate all the sick and wounded, yet the stand made at Krems and the victory over Mortier raised the spirits of the army considerably. Throughout the whole army, and at headquarters, most joyful, though erroneous rumors were rife of the imaginary approach of columns from Russia, of some victory gained by the Austrians, and of the retreat of the frightened Bonaparte.
Prince Andrew, during the battle, had been in attendance on the Austrian General Schmidt, who was killed in action. His horse had been wounded under him, and his own arm slightly grazed by a bullet. As a mark of the commander-in-chief's special favor, he was sent with the news of this victory to the Austrian court, now no longer at Vienna, which was threatened by the French, but at Brunn. Despite his apparently delicate build, Prince Andrew could endure physical fatigue far better than many very muscular men. And on the night of the battle, having arrived at Krems, excited but not wary, with dispatches from Doktorov to Kutuzov, he was sent immediately with a special dispatch to Brunn. To be so sent meant not only a reward, but an important step toward promotion.
The night was dark but starry. The road showed black in the snow that had fallen the previous day, the day of the battle. Reviewing his impressions of the recent battle, picturing pleasantly to himself the impression his news of a victory would create, or recalling the send-off given him by the commander-in-chief and his fellow officers, Prince Andrew was galloping along in a post-chaise, enjoying the feelings of a man who has at length begun to attain a long-desired happiness. As soon as he closed his eyes, his ears seemed filled with the rattle of the wheels and the sensation of victory. Then he began to imagine that the Russians were running away and that he himself was killed. But he quickly roused himself with a feeling of joy, as if learning afresh that this was not so, but that, on the contrary, the French had run away. He again recalled all the details of the victory and his own calm courage during the battle and feeling reassured, he dozed off. The dark, starry night was followed by a bright, cheerful morning. The snow was thawing in the sunshine, the horses galloped quickly, and on both sides of the road were forests of different kinds, fields, and villages.
At one of the post stations, he overtook a convoy of Russian wounded. The Russian officer in charge of the transport lolled back in the front cart, shouting and scolding a soldier with coarse abuse. In each of the long German carts, 6 or more pale, dirty, bandaged men were being jolted over the stony road. Some of them were talking. He heard Russian words. Others were eating bread. The more severely wounded looked silently, with the languid interest of sick children, at the envoy hurrying past them.
Prince Andrew told his driver to stop and asked a soldier in what action they had been wounded. "Day before yesterday, on the Danube," answered the soldier. Prince Andrew took out his purse and gave the soldier 3 gold pieces.
"That's for them all," he said to the officer who came up.
"Get well soon, lads," he continued, turning to the soldiers. "There's plenty to do still."
"What news, sir?" asked the officer, evidently anxious to start a conversation.
"Good news." "Go on," he shouted to the driver, and they galloped on.
It was already quite dark when Prince Andrew rattled over the paved streets of Brunn and found himself surrounded by high buildings, the lights of shops, houses, and street lamps, fine carriages, and all that atmosphere of a large and active town, which is always so attractive to a soldier after camp life. Despite his rapid journey and sleepless night, Prince Andrew, when he drove up to the palace, felt even more vigorous and alert than he had done the day before. Only his extraordinary clearness and rapidity. He again vividly recalled the details of the battle, no longer dim, but definite, and in the concise form in which he imagined himself stating them to the Emperor Francis. He vividly imagined the casual questions that might be put to him, and the answers he would give. He expected to be at once presented to the Emperor. At the chief entrance to the palace, however, an official came running out to meet him, and learning that he was a special messenger, led him to another entrance.
To the right from the corridor, Uwe Huck Hochgeboren. I have no idea how to say that.
I think you did a pretty decent job.
I don't know. It sounded like
Hochgeboren.
that sounded slightly better. It sounded like alien just now.
I think when in doubt, just
Pretty much any language.
pretty much.
Just kidding. Only German and French. There you will find the adjutant on duty, said the official. He will conduct you to the Minister of War.
The adjutant on duty, meeting Prince Andrew, asked him to wait, and went in to the Minister of War. 5 minutes later he returned, and bowing with particular courtesy, ushered Prince Andrew before him along the corridor to the cabinet where the Minister of War was at work. The adjutant, by his elaborate courtesy, appeared to wish to ward off any attempt at familiarity on the part of the Russian messenger.
Prince Andrew's joyous feeling was considerably weakened as he approached the door of the minister's room. He felt offended, and without his noticing it, the feeling of offense immediately turned into one of disdain, which was quite uncalled for. His fertile mind instantly suggested to him a point of view which gave him a right to despise the adjutant and the minister. Away from the smell of powder, they probably think it easy to gain victories, he thought. His eyes narrowed disdainfully. He entered the room of the Minister of War with peculiarly deliberate steps. This feeling of disdain was heightened when he saw the minister, seated at a large table reading some papers and making pencil notes on them, and for the first 2 or 3 minutes taking no notice of his arrival. A wax candle stood at each side of the minister's bent bald head with its grey temples. He went on reading to the end, without raising his eyes at the opening of the door and the sound of footsteps.
"Take this and deliver it," said he to his adjutant, handing him the papers and still taking no notice of the special messenger.
Prince Andrew felt that either the actions of Kutuzov's army interested the Minister of War less than any of the other matters he was concerned with, or he wanted to give the Russian special messenger that impression. But that is a matter of perfect indifference to me, he thought. The minister drew the remaining papers together, arranged them evenly, and then raised his head. He had an intellectual and distinctive head. But the instant he turned to Prince Andrew, the firm, intelligent expression of his face changed in a way evidently deliberate and habitual to him. His face took on the stupid, artificial smile, which does not even attempt to hide its artificiality, of a man who is continually receiving many petitioners, one after the other.
"From General Field Marshal Kutuzov," he asked. "I hope it is good news. There has been an encounter with Mortier. A victory! It was high time."
He took the dispatch which was addressed to him and began to read it with a mournful expression.
"Oh, my God. My God. Schmidt!" he exclaimed in German. "What a calamity! What a calamity!"
Having glanced through the dispatch, he laid it on the table and looked at Prince Andrew, evidently considering something.
"Oh, what a calamity. You say the affair was decisive. But Mortier is not captured." Again he pondered. "I am very glad you have brought good news, though Schmidt's death is a heavy price to pay for the victory. His Majesty will no doubt wish to see you, but not today. I thank you. You must have a rest. Be at the levee tomorrow after the parade. However, I will let you know."
The stupid smile which had left his face while he was speaking reappeared.
"Au revoir. Thank you very much. His Majesty will probably desire to see you," he added, bowing his head.
When Prince Andrew left the palace, he felt that all the interest and happiness the victory had afforded him had been now left in the indifferent hands of the Minister of War and the polite adjutant. The whole tenor of his thoughts instantaneously changed. The battle seemed the memory of a remote event long past. Typical.
Typical.
Yeah. Making up stories about shit. And then being like,
Ooh.
because you're responding differently, I think differently.
I know. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know who said this, and I apologize. I heard that the present and future changes the past.
The present and future change the past.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting.
Yep.
Chapter 10. Prince Andrew stayed at Brunn with Bilibin, a Russian acquaintance of his, in the diplomatic service.
"Ah, my dear Prince, I could not have a more welcome visitor," said Bilibin as he came out to meet Prince Andrew. "Franz, put the prince's things in my bedroom," said he to the servant who was ushering Bolkonsky in. So you're a messenger of victory, eh? Splendid. And I am sitting here ill, as you see.
After washing and dressing, Prince Andrew came into the diplomat's luxurious study and sat down to the dinner prepared for him. Bilibin settled down comfortably beside the fire.
Can we shift the thing so I can sit in the center?
Yes. There you go.
After his journey and the campaign...
I'm going to scooch over here. But yeah.
Okay. After his journey and the campaign, during which he had been deprived of all the comforts of cleanliness and all the refinements of life, Prince Andrew felt a pleasant sense of repose among luxurious surroundings such as he had been accustomed to from childhood. Besides, it was pleasant, after his reception by the Austrians, to speak, if not in Russian, for they were speaking French, at least with a Russian, who would, he supposed, share the general Russian antipathy to the Austrians, which was then particularly strong.
Bilibin was a man of 35, a bachelor, and of the same circle as Prince Andrew. They had known each other previously in Petersburg, but had become more intimate when Prince Andrew was in Vienna with Kutuzov. Just as Prince Andrew was a young man who gave promise of rising high in the military profession, so to an even greater extent, Bilibin gave promise of rising in his diplomatic career. He, still a young man, but no longer a young diplomat, as he had entered the service at the age of 16, had been in Paris and Copenhagen, and now held a rather important post in Vienna. Both the foreign minister and our ambassador in Vienna knew him and valued him. He was not one of those many diplomats who are esteemed because they have certain negative qualities, avoid doing certain things, and speak French. He was one of those who, liking work, knew how to do it, and despite his indolence, would sometimes spend a whole night at his writing table. He worked well, whatever the import of his work. It was not the question what for, but the question how that interested him. What the diplomatic matter might be, he did not care, but it gave him great pleasure to prepare a circular, memorandum, or report, skillfully, pointedly, and elegantly. Bilibin's services were valued not only for what he wrote, but also for his skill in dealing and conversing with those in the highest spheres.
Bilibin liked conversation as he liked work, only when it could be made elegantly witty. In society, he always awaited an opportunity to say something striking, and took part in a conversation only when that was possible. His conversation was always sprinkled with wittily original finished phrases of general interest. These sayings were prepared in the inner laboratory of his mind, in a portable form, as if intentionally, so that insignificant society people might carry them from drawing room to drawing room. And in fact, Bilibin's witticisms were hawked about in the Viennese drawing rooms, and often had an influence on matters considered important.
Ooh! His thin, worn, sallow face was covered with deep wrinkles. He's 35. Which always looked as clean and well-washed as the tips of one's fingers after a Russian bath. The movement of these wrinkles formed the principal play of expression on his face. Now his forehead would pucker into deep folds, and his eyebrows were lifted. Then his eyebrows would descend, and deep wrinkles would crease his cheeks. His small, deep-set eyes always twinkled and looked out straight.
Well, now tell me about your exploits, said he.
Bolkonsky, very modestly, without once mentioning himself, described the engagement and his reception by the Minister of War.
They received me in my news as one receives a dog in a game of skittles, said he in conclusion.
Bilibin smiled, and the wrinkles on his face disappeared.
Cependant, mon cher, he remarked, examining his nails from a distance and puckering the skin above his left eye. Malgré la haute
estime que je professe pour dire despite the high esteem I profess for the Russian army, j'avoue que votre victoire n'est pas de plus victorieuse. I swear that your victory...
But my dear fellow, with all my respect for the Orthodox Russian army, I must say that your victory was not particularly victorious.
Okay. He went on talking in this way in French, uttering only these words in Russian, on which he wished to put a contemptuous emphasis.
Come now, you with all your forces fall on the unfortunate Mortier and his one division, and even then, Mortier slips through your fingers. Where's the victory?
But seriously, said Prince Andrew, we can at any rate say without boasting that it was a little better than at Ulm.
Why didn't you capture one, just one, Marshal, for us?
Because not everything happens as one expects or with the smoothness of a parade. We'd expected, as I told you, to get at that rear by 7 in the morning, but had not reached it by 5 in the afternoon.
And why didn't you do it at 7 in the morning? You ought to have been there at 7 in the morning, returned Bilibin with a smile. You ought to have been there at 7 in the morning.
One more time. Why did you
I say, old fellow.
Why
you ought to have...
Is that like one of the things? And then Bilibin said, why not do it? Why not be there at 7 in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the witticisms. Why did you not succeed in impressing on Bonaparte by diplomatic methods that he had better leave Genoa alone? Retorted Prince Andrew in the same tone.
I know, interrupted Bilibin. You're thinking it's very easy to take marshals sitting on a sofa by the fire. That is true. But still, why didn't you capture him? So don't be surprised if not only the Minister of War, but also His Most August Majesty the Emperor and King Francis is not much delighted by your victory. Even I, a poor secretary of the Russian embassy, do not feel any need in token of my joy to give my Franz a thaler, what? Or let him go with his Leibchen to the Prater. True, we have no Prater here.
He looked straight at Prince Andrew and suddenly unwrinkled his forehead.
It is now my turn to ask you why, mon cher, said Bolkonsky. Oh, said Bolkonsky. I confess I do not understand. Perhaps there are diplomatic subtleties here beyond my feeble intelligence, but I can't make it out. Mac loses a whole army. The Archduke Ferdinand and the Archduke Karl give no signs of life and make blunder after blunder. Kutuzov alone at last gains a real victory, destroying the spell of the invincibility of the French, and the Minister of War does not even care to hear the details.
That's just it, my dear fellow. You see, it's hurrah for the Tsar, for Russia, for the Orthodox Greek faith. All that is beautiful. But what do we, I mean the Austrian court, care for your victories? Bring us nice news of a victory by the Archduke Karl or Ferdinand. One archduke's as good as another, as you know. And even if it is only over a fire brigade of Bonaparte's, that will be another story, and we'll fire off some cannon. But this sort of thing seems done on purpose to vex us. The Archduke Karl does nothing. The Archduke Ferdinand disgraces himself. You abandon Vienna, give up its defenses, as much as to say, heaven is with us, but heaven help you in your capital. The one general whom we all loved, Schmidt, you expose to a bullet, and then you congratulate us on the victory. Admit that more irritating news than yours could not have been conceived. It's as if it had been done on purpose. On purpose. Besides, suppose you did gain a brilliant victory. If even the Archduke Karl gained a victory, what effect would that have on the general course of events? It's too late now when Vienna is occupied by the French army.
What? Occupied? Vienna occupied?
Not only occupied, but Bonaparte is at Schönbrunn. And the Count, our dear Count Wrobna, goes to him for orders.
After the fatigues and impressions of the journey, his reception, and especially after having dined, Bolkonsky felt that he could not take in the full significance of the words he heard.
Count Lichtenfels was here this morning, Bilibin continued, and showed me a letter in which the parade of the French in Vienna was fully described. Prince Murat et tout le tremblement, you see that your victory is not a matter for great rejoicing, and that you can't be received as a savior.
Really, I don't care about that. I don't care at all, said Prince Andrew, beginning to understand that his news of the battle before Krems was really of small importance in view of such events as the fall of Austria's capital. How is it Vienna was taken? What of the bridge Augsburg? We heard reports that Prince Augsburg was defending Vienna, he said.
Prince Augsburg is on our side of the river and is defending us. Doing it very badly, I think, but still he is defending us. But Vienna is on the other side. No, the bridge has not yet been taken, and I hope it will not be, for it is mined, and orders have been given to blow it up. Otherwise, we should long ago have been in the mountains of Bohemia, and you and your army would have spent a bad quarter of an hour between two fires.
But still, this does not mean that the campaign is over, said Prince Andrew.
Well, I think it is. The bigwigs here think so too, but they daren't say so. It will be as I said at the beginning of the campaign. It won't be your skirmishing at Dorenstein, or gunpowder at all, that will decide the matter, but those who devised it, said Bilibin, quoting one of his own mots, releasing the wrinkles on his forehead and pausing. The only question is, what will come of the meeting between the Emperor Alexander and the King of Prussia in Berlin? If Prussia joins the Allies, Austria's hand will be forced, and there will be war. If not, it is merely a question of settling where the preliminaries of the new Campo Formio are to be drawn up.
What an extraordinary genius, Prince Andrew suddenly exclaimed, clenching his small hand and striking the table with it. And what luck the man has!
Bonaparte, said Bilibin inquiringly, puckering up his forehead to indicate that he was about to say something witty. Oh, Bonaparte, he repeated, accentuating the you. I think, however, now that he lays down laws for Austria at Schönbrunn, il faut lui faire grâce de lieu. De lieu? We must let him off the you. I don't know what the you is. I shall certainly adopt an innovation and call him simply Bonaparte.
So there's some significance to the two different ways they have spelled it, which we have not reflected at all in our reading. And so what would you know about it? And I think that's what they're talking about.
Il faut lui faire grâce de lui. We must let him off the you. Bonaparte, is it like because of his Italian heritage?
Perhaps. Okay. But joking apart, said Prince Andrew, do you really think the campaign is over?
This is what I think. Austria has been made a fool of, and she's not used to it. She will retaliate, and she has been fooled in the first place because her provinces have been pillaged. They say the Holy Russian army loots terribly. Her army is destroyed, her capital taken, and all this for the beaux yeux of his Sardinian Majesty. And therefore, this is between ourselves, I instinctively feel that we are being deceived. My instinct tells me of negotiations with France and projects for peace, a secret peace, concluded separately.
Impossible, cried Prince Andrew. That would be too base.
If we live, we shall see, replied Bilibin, his face again becoming smooth, as a sign that the conversation was at an end.
When Prince Andrew reached the room prepared for him and lay down in a clean shirt on the feather bed with its warmed and fragrant pillows, he felt that the battle of which he had brought tidings was far, far away from him. The alliance with Prussia, Austria's treachery, Bonaparte's new triumph, tomorrow's levee and parade, and the audience with the Emperor Francis occupied his thoughts.
He closed his eyes, and immediately a sound of cannonading, of musketry, and the rattling of carriage wheels seemed to fill his ears. And now again, drawn out in a thin line, the musketeers were descending the hill. The French were firing, and he felt his heart palpitating as he rode forward beside Schmidt, with the bullets merrily whistling all around. And he experienced tenfold the joy of living, as he had not done since childhood.
He woke up.
Yes, that all happened, he said, and, smiling happily to himself like a child, he fell into a deep, youthful slumber. So now apparently he really likes the war.
I was going to say his performance has perhaps improved.
His performance, he's gotten better at it?
Maybe, because he basically just ran around like a dongle in his first foray into it and then was like, wait, it's over?
Yeah. I mean, maybe in the moment, you're terrified. And then when you look back on it, you're like, wow, I did that.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, to be alive.
Maybe.
Seems like it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
This is chapter 11. The first thought that came into his mind was that today he had to be presented to the Emperor Francis. He remembered the Minister of War, the polite Austrian adjutant, Bilibin, and last night's conversation. Having dressed for his attendance at court in full parade uniform, which he had not worn for a long time, he went into Bilibin's study, fresh, animated, and handsome, with his hand bandaged. From what?
I do not. Oh, he got injured. Right? A bullet grazed him?
That wasn't him.
Wasn't it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
In the study were 4 gentlemen of the diplomatic corps, with Prince Hippolyta Kuragin, who was a secretary to the embassy. Bolkonsky was already acquainted, as are we. Bilibin introduced him to the others.
Gentlemen assembled at Bilibin's were young, wealthy, gay society men, who here, as in Vienna, formed a special set which Bilibin, their leader, called les nôtres, the us, I believe, ours. Yeah. Go back. Okay. This set, consisting almost exclusively of diplomats, evidently had its own interests, which had nothing to do with war or politics, but related to high society, to certain women, and to the official side of the service. These gentlemen received Prince Andrew as one of themselves, an honor they did not extend to many. From politeness and to start conversation, they asked him a few questions about the army and the battle, and then the talk went off into merry jests and gossip.
But the best of it was, said one, telling the misfortune of a fellow diplomat, that the Chancellor told him flatly that his appointment to London was a promotion and that he was so to regard it. Can you fancy the figure he got?
But the worst of it, gentlemen, I am giving Kuragin away to you, is that that man suffers, and this Don Juan, wicked fellow, is taking advantage of it.
Prince Hippolyta was lolling in a lounge chair with his legs over its arms. He began to laugh.
Tell me about that, he said.
Oh, you Don Juan, you serpent, cried several voices.
You, Bolkonsky, don't know, said Bilibin, turning to Prince Andrew, that all the atrocities of the French army, I nearly said the Russian army, are nothing compared to what this man has been doing among the women.
La femme est la compagne de l'homme. Woman is man's companion. Announced Prince Hippolyta, and began looking through a lorgnette. Is that the...
That, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
At his elevated legs.
That's why I was like, I think it's important to point that out, what that is.
And are we certain that's what it is?
I'm not certain. If you want to look it up, feel free. Bilibin and the rest of ours burst out laughing in Hippolyta's face, and Prince Andrew saw that Hippolyta, of whom he had to admit he had almost been jealous on his wife's account, was the butt of this set.
Oh, I must give you a treat, Bilibin whispered to Bolkonsky. Kuragin is exquisite when he discusses politics. You should see his gravity.
He sat down beside Hippolyta and, wrinkling his forehead, began talking to him about politics. Prince Andrew and the 2 others gathered round these 2.
The Berlin cabinet cannot express a feeling of alliance, began Hippolyta, gazing round with importance at the others, without expressing, as in its last note, you understand. Besides, unless His Majesty the Emperor derogates, I don't actually know that word, from the principle of our alliance.
Would be related to derogative?
No, probably.
Wait, I have not finished, he said to Prince Andrew, seizing him by the arm. I believe that intervention will be stronger than non-intervention. And, he paused, finally, one cannot impute the non-receipt of our dispatch of November 18th. That is how it will end. And he released Bolkonsky's arm to indicate that he had now quite finished.
Demosthenes, I know thee by the pebble thou secretest in thy golden mouth, said Bilibin, and the mop of hair on his head moved with satisfaction.
Everybody laughed, and Hippolyta louder than anyone. He was evidently distressed, and breathed painfully, but could not restrain the wild laughter that convulsed his usually impassive features.
What is happening with him? Well now, gentlemen, said Bilibin, Bolkonsky is my guest in this house and in Brunnen, as with all the pleasures of here. If we were in Vienna, it would be easy, but here, in this wretched Moravian hole, it is more difficult, and I beg you all to help me. Brunn's attractions must be shown him. You can undertake the theatre, society. And you, Hippolyta, of course the women.
We must let him see Amélie. She's exquisite, said one of ours, kissing his fingertips.
Ew. In general, we must turn this bloodthirsty soldier to more humane interests, said Bilibin.
I shall scarcely be able to avail myself of your hospitality, gentlemen. It is already time for me to go, replied Prince Andrew, looking at his watch.
Where to?
To the Emperor.
Well, au revoir, Bolkonsky, au revoir, Prince. Come back early to dinner, cried several voices. We'll take you in hand.
When speaking to the Emperor, try as far as you can to praise the way that provisions are supplied and the routes indicated, said Bilibin, accompanying him to the hall.
I should like to speak well of them, but as far as I know the facts, I can't, replied Bolkonsky, smiling.
Well, talk as much as you can anyway. He has a passion for giving audiences, but he does not like talking himself and can't do it, as you will see.
Interesting.
Do we get to meet the Emperor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
So excited. What's he going to be like?
Quiet.
Is he going to be handsome? Is he going to be stupid?
He's going to be stupid.
I'm just getting some water.
Okay.
Is he going to be like a puppet?
I don't know.
Do we know who he is? No.
No,
Okay.
I don't. My dad probably does.
Right. Okay. Chapter 12.
At the levee, Prince Andrew stood among the Austrian officers as he had been told to, and the Emperor Francis merely looked fixedly into his face and just nodded to him with his long head. He's long-headed. But after it was over, the adjutant he had seen the previous day ceremoniously informed Bolkonsky that the Emperor decided to give him an audience. The Emperor Francis received him, standing in the middle of the room. Before the conversation began, Prince Andrew was struck by the fact that the Emperor seemed confused and blushed as if not knowing what to say.
Tell me, when did the battle begin? He asked hurriedly.
Prince Andrew replied. Then followed other questions just as simple. Was Kutuzov well? When had he left Krems? And so on. The Emperor spoke as if his sole aim were to put a given number of questions. The answers to these questions, as was only too evident, did not interest him.
At what o'clock did the battle begin? Asked the Emperor.
I cannot inform your majesty at what o'clock the battle began at the front, but at Dürnstein, where I was, our attack began after 5 in the afternoon, replied Bolkonsky, growing more animated and expecting that he would have a chance to give a reliable account, which he had ready in his mind of all he knew and had seen. But the Emperor smiled and interrupted him.
How many miles?
From where to where, your majesty?
From Dürnstein to Krems.
3.5 miles, your majesty.
The French have abandoned the left bank?
According to the scouts, the last of them crossed on rafts during the night.
Is there sufficient forage in Krems?
Forage has not been supplied to the extent.
The Emperor interrupted him.
At what o'clock was General Schmidt killed?
At 7 o'clock, I believe.
At 7 o'clock. It's very sad. Very sad.
The Emperor thanked Prince Andrew and bowed. Prince Andrew withdrew and was immediately surrounded by courtiers on all sides. Everywhere he saw friendly looks and heard friendly words. Yesterday's adjutant reproached him for not having stayed at the palace and offered him his own house. The Minister of War came up and congratulated him on the Maria Theresa Order of the Third Grade, which the Emperor was conferring on him. The Empress's chamberlain invited him to see Her Majesty. The Archduchess also wished to see him. He did not know whom to answer and for a few seconds collected his thoughts. Then the Russian ambassador took him by the shoulder, led him to the window, and began to talk to him.
Contrary to Bilibin's forecast, the news he had brought was joyfully received. A Thanksgiving service was arranged. Kutuzov was awarded the Grand Cross of Maria Theresa, and the whole army received rewards. Bolkonsky was invited everywhere and had to spend the whole morning calling on the principal Austrian dignitaries. Having made all his calls, he was returning to Bilibin's house, thinking out a letter to his father about the battle and his visit to Brunn. At the door, he found a vehicle half full of luggage. Franz, Bilibin's man, was dragging a portmanteau with some difficulty out of the front door.
Before returning to Bilibin's, Prince Andrew had gone to a bookshop to provide himself with some books for the campaign, and had spent some time in the shop.
What is it? He asked.
Oh, Your Excellency, said Franz, with difficulty rolling the portmanteau into the vehicle. We are to move on still further. The scoundrel is again at our heels.
What? asked Prince Andrew.
Bilibin came out to meet him. His usually calm face showed excitement.
There now, confess that this is delightful, said he. This affair of the table, maybe bridge, at Vienna, they have crossed without striking a blow.
Prince Andrew could not understand.
But where do you come from, not to know what every coachman in the town knows?
I come from the Archduchess's. I heard nothing there.
And you didn't see that everybody's backing up?
I did not. What is it all about? Inquired Prince Andrew impatiently.
What's it all about? Why, the French have crossed the bridge that Augsburg was defending, and the bridge was not blown up, so Murat is now rushing along the road to Brunn and will be here in a day or two.
What? Here? But why did they not blow up the bridge if it was mined?
That is what I asked you. No one, not even Bonaparte, knows why.
Volkonsky shrugged his shoulders.
But if the bridge is crossed, it means the army, too, is lost. It will be cut off, said he.
That's just it, answered Bilibin. Listen. The French entered Vienna, as I told you. Very well. Next day, which was yesterday, those gentlemen, Monsieur les Marchaux, Murat, Lannes, and Belliard, mount and ride to the bridge. Observe that all three are Gascons. Gentlemen, says one of them, you know the Tabor Bridge is mined, and doubly mined, and that there are menacing fortifications at its head, and an army of 15,000 men has been ordered to blow up the bridge and not let us cross. But it will please our sovereign, the Emperor Napoleon, if we take this bridge. So let us three go and take it. Yes, let's, say the others, and off they go, and take the bridge, cross it, and now with their whole army are on this side of the Danube, marching on us, you and your lines of communication.
Stop jesting, said Prince Andrew sadly and seriously. This news grieved him, and yet he was pleased.
As soon as he learned that the Russian army was in such a hopeless situation, it occurred to him that it was he who was destined to lead it out of this position. That here was the Toulon that would lift him from the ranks of obscure officers and offer him the first step to fame.
Jesus.
Listening to Bilibin, he was already imagining how, on reaching the army, he would give an opinion at the War Council, which would be the only one that could save the army, and how he alone would be entrusted with the executing of the plan.
Stop this jesting, he said.
I'm not jesting, Bilibin went on. Nothing is truer or sadder. These gentlemen ride onto the bridge alone and wave white handkerchiefs. They assure the officer on duty that they, the marshals, are on their way to negotiate with Prince Auersperg. He lets them enter the tete de pont.
Can I just say that my mom was like, oh, they've all gone out to the grocery store, so I'm by myself, so I figured I'd call you. We can have a tete-a-tete.
Yes.
It's like gotten incorporated.
Yes, a tete-a-tete. He lets them enter the tete de pont. They spin him 1,000 gasconades, saying that the war is over, that the Emperor Francis is arranging a meeting with Bonaparte, that they desire to see Prince Auersperg, and so on. The officer sends for Auersperg. These gentlemen embrace the officers, crack jokes, sit on the cannon, and meanwhile, a French battalion gets to the bridge unobserved, flings the bags of incendiary material into the water, and approaches the tete de pont. At length appears the Lieutenant General, our dear Prince Auersperg von Metternich himself. Dearest foe, flower of the Austrian army, hero of the Turkish wars, hostilities are ended. We can shake one another's hand. The Emperor Napoleon burns with impatience to make Prince Auersperg's acquaintance. In a word, those gentlemen, Gascons indeed, so bewildered him with fine words, and he is so flattered by his rapidly established intimacy with the French marshals, and so dazzled by the sight of Murat's mantle and ostrich plumes, qu'il n'y voit que de feu, et oublie celui qu'il devait faire sur l'ennemi. That's that he ought to be firing.
Is it a break?
Oh. In spite of the animation of his speech, Bilibin did not forget to pause after this mot to give time for its due appreciation.
What is this random throwing in of mots?
This mot.
Twice they've just for no reason been like, he's happy with his mo.
Let me give you a mo. Or de.
You know, why are they doing that?
I don't know. It'd be pretty obnoxious if I spoke in this way, wouldn't it?
Let's see.
But maybe we can bring it back.
Bring
Let
it
me
back.
give you a mo. What a mo she had.
4 men went to mow a meadow. You know that? 4 men, 3 men, 2 men, 1 man and his dog. Went to mow a meadow. All these things are coming back to me because of my damn nephew.
If you take my word for it, I never thought of
Your
it this
mo?
way. Yeah. Because I was like, oh, like mo. But you're using like mo as plural.
Not here, but yes. This time it was just M-O-T.
No, I know. That's what I mean.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So I was like, oh, like his mo, his word. Well, I guess that's what they. Is that what they mean? After this mo. No.
I lost the spot.
So
Oh, here.
It is interesting that they use French so much when they're fighting in French. I don't know how they decide to like put things in French. Why?
I don't either.
Why are they like, let me say this in French? Like, do you think it's impressive? Is that why they do it?
I don't know if it's like a high society thing or if it's.
I think it is that.
This is very easily checkable.
And I think that maybe that still exists then today. That like French is like, oh, you know French.
Yeah, I don't know personally what it's like in other European countries to be like, oh, plus I've got French.
I feel like in Europe now everyone kind of speaks some French.
Really?
I think so. When I went to Spain, I spoke French. Because I thought I would be able to communicate in Spanish, and I could not. But instead,
They are like
that's
so
the
similar though. So maybe
I
it's
thought
true.
I thought it would be really similar in that I would be able to do it. So I was like, oh, if I can speak French, I'll like be able to pick up on it. I could not, so instead, I spoke French to people.
Right, but they
almost
knew what you were
everyone
saying.
knew it. Yeah.
So maybe there's some like intermixing. I mean, this doesn't account for the Russians, but I can see there being some intermixing in the Romance languages. But.
Mm-hmm. Did you see that? I also thought that Quebec was so unique because they spoke English all the time.
Did they?
Yeah, like they'll just like switch back and forth and not even pay attention to it. I thought that was very unique, but this is making me think that I don't know it's possible to be speaking like 4 languages in the same conversation, apparently.
No. There's a full-on like mixing of Hindi and English. And, yeah.
I like that.
Sorry, I think I interrupted you when you were around the mole line. Mole sentence.
Mm-hmm. In spite of the animation of his speech, Philibin did not forget to pause after this move to give time for its due appreciation. Oh, you have to just continue. Got it. The French battalion rushes to the bridgehead, spikes the guns, and all the bridge is taken. But what is best of all, he went on, his excitement subsiding under the delightful interest of his own story, is that the sergeant in charge of the cannon, which was to give the signal to fire the mines and blow up the bridge, this sergeant, seeing that the French troops were running onto the bridge, was about to fire, but Lance stayed his hand. The sergeant, who was evidently wiser than his general, goes up to Osberg and says, Prince,
what? Okay, sorry.
Wait, just the prince is like still like talking to those French dudes, and he's like, "Oh, they like him so much."
I don't know. This is very confusing. Or maybe I just checked out at the wrong time.
Okay. I'm gonna get to the end, and then we can talk about it.
Go ahead.
Okay, Prince, you're being deceived. Here are the French. Marat, seeing that all is lost if the sergeant is allowed to speak, turns to Osberg. With feigned astonishment, he is a true Gascon. I don't know why we don't like the Gascons, but anyway. And says, I don't recognize the world-famous Austrian discipline if you allow a subordinate to address you like that. It was a stroke of genius. Prince Osberg feels his dignity at stake and orders the sergeant to be arrested. Come, you must own that this affair of the Tabor Bridge is delightful. It is not exactly stupidity nor rascality.
It may be treachery?
Yeah.
It may be treachery, said Prince Andrew, vividly imagining the grey overcoat's wounds, the smoke of gunpowder, the sound of firing, and the glory that awaited him.
Wait, do you want to figure out what?
Sure.
So it's just that 3 Gascons, like, waved away.
Over there.
We're like, oh, we're gonna like have a truce. And so he meets the general. They meet the general. And they're like joking with him, laughing, so his guard is down. And then while that's going on.
How can he be that much of a dongo?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's why they're like, oh, it's so funny. You're an idiot.
Okay.
And then while that is all going on, they're taking the bridge.
Right. Yeah. And then when he's warned, he's like, yeah, that I followed.
Okay. Not that either. That puts the court in too bad a light, replied Bilibin. It's not treachery, nor rascality, nor stupidity. It is just as at home. It is. He seemed to be trying to find the right expression. C'est du mac. Nous sommes mac. It is a bit of mac. We are macked. He concluded, feeling that he had produced a good epigram, a fresh one that would be repeated. His hitherto puckered brow became smooth as a sign of pleasure, and with a slight smile, he began to examine his nails.
He's just trying to get stuff trending.
I know, he's just like, yeah, tweet that.
Where are you off to? He said suddenly to Prince Andrew, who had risen and was going toward his room.
I'm going away.
Where to?
To the army.
But you meant to stay another 2 days.
But now I am off at once.
And Prince Andrew, after giving directions about his departure, went to his room.
Do you know, mon cher, said Bilibin, following him, I've been thinking about you. Why are you going?
And in proof of the conclusiveness of his opinions, all the wrinkles vanished from his face.
Prince Andrew looked inquiringly at him and gave no reply.
Why are you going? I know you think it your duty to gallop back to the army now that it is in danger. I understand that, mon cher. It is heroism.
Not at all, said Prince Andrew.
But as you are a philosopher, be a consistent one. Look at the other side of the question, and you will see that your duty, on the contrary, is to take care of yourself. Leave it to those who are no longer fit for anything else. You have not been ordered to return and have not been dismissed from here. Therefore, you can stay and go with us wherever our ill luck takes us. They say we are going to Olmutz. And Olmutz is a very decent town. You and I will travel comfortably in my caleche.
Do stop joking, Bilibin, cried Bolkonsky.
I am speaking sincerely as a friend. Consider where and why you are going, when you might remain here. When you might remain here. You are faced by one of 2 things, and the skin over his left temple puckered. His wrinkles are a lot to keep up with. Either you will not reach your regiment before...
Imagine if, like, you can read him by the state of his wrinkles.
That's basically true, right?
It must be very expressive. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No problem. Either you will not reach your regiment before peace is concluded, or you will share defeat and disgrace with Kutuzov's whole army.
And Bilibin unwrinkled his temple, feeling that the dilemma was insoluble.
I cannot argue about it, replied Prince Andrew coldly, but he thought, I am going to save the army.
My dear fellow, you are a hero, said Bilibin.
Can't tell if that was like an insult or...
I think that's like I just is sarcastic, like smug.
Yes.
I think quote.
He's a diplomat, though. He's very.
He's very
like interpersonally savvy.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know why he thinks. Why does Prince Andrew think he's going to save the army?
Because he's just got another idea.
What's his idea?
That he's going to save the army.
But by doing what? What's his genius plan?
He doesn't have one.
I will, Prince Andrew.
He's just like,
what confidence?
He's just taken a shot of Kool-Aid and he's like, here I go to.
I really wish I could have that confidence.
Mend my relationship.
I really wish I could be like, I'm going to save the world. Let's go.
You can.
It's me. Hey guys, I don't have an idea, but it's me.
Yeah, I think you have to have an idea.
This is like some.
You can do that. That's like what half of LA is.
What?
Half of LA is people who are like this, and you're like, what?
It's like some NSYNC bullshit thing.
What?
It's gonna be me.
Oh, did you say NSYNC?
Yeah. Don't tell me that's Backstreet.
I don't know, but it's definitely NSYNC.
NSYNC.
It's not NSYNC. You don't say the letter like it's a letter.
Yeah, you do. NSYNC. I'm sorry.
What?
It should be like NSYNC.
It's not like NSYNC, but it's a reference to being in sync. Like people just say NSYNC.
NSYNC.
Yeah, NSYNC.
I know it's supposed to be clever because it's always their names, right?
I don't know.
Wait, is it?
I don't know.
Or did I just make that up?
Probably. You just made that up because there's Justin Timberlake and there's no J in sync.
Why did I think that?
No clue.
Okay, then I know nothing. NSYNC. But yeah, I really I want to be that person who's like, I will go to save the day.
I mean, I feel like you could be.
I could. It's like, I'm gonna solve the virus.
Well,
everyone listen to me.
I'm thinking.
Vitamin C.
Emily texted me today, saying, no, this wasn't like the reason of the conversation, but in talking to her, she said that some friend of hers told her she should take a lot of vitamin C and that the Chinese were fighting the virus with vitamin C.
I thought that once you get sick, vitamin C is basically useless.
I don't know. You catch a lot of rumors, huh?
Yeah.
You hear a lot of things.
I do.
You're like, I've heard this, I've heard that.
I know. This is what I'm talking about, but then I don't sound reliable because I can't tell you who told me that.
And if they're reliable or not.
Right.
Because anyone who told you that it's pronounced NSYNC is not reliable.
No one told me that. I just figured that out on my own.
Okay.
NSYNC. At least I wasn't like, it's like NSYNC.
That would have been so great. That would have been so great. I like that bit about it's over their names.
Maybe it is.
It's utterly unverified. It's not, because I know at least one of them is named Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, but maybe it's like Justin in Spanish, which becomes Justin.
Okay. Do you want ice cream?
I can't believe that truck is still going around.
I mean, to be honest, it's like an open air truck, so it could be worse.
I think the ice cream is clean.
Like if she's using gloves, maybe.
I hope she's using gloves.
Yeah, me too. I don't know who's buying it, but.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work. They must get in only work. No, but literally.
Yeah. Right.
So I bet you that lady
right, she can't just.
She has to do this.
She has to cover her ice cream.
Yeah.
The tough way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've seen the people out with their like little food carts though. Cause yeah, what are they gonna do?
Yeah. The staying at home thing is a bit of a,
Privilege.
yeah, in case you couldn't tell them, you know, pile of blankets. Um, yeah, I don't know what's like gonna happen. This guy that I spoke to is a locations manager.
Okay.
Like, you can't do that. You know,
Oh yeah.
like, there's so many jobs that instantly are like, nope. I feel like the people who are most in denial, aside from the Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
are my agents and
Really?
managers.
What are they saying?
They're just like grinding it out. Today, I got an email, like an official email, being like, "Have you gotten any emails?"
I know people are working from home. Yeah.
Okay.
I spoke to my manager, but I want to know what yours said.
Well, just that, like, in light of basically what they said yesterday, like they were like going to work all through the.
They were?
I think so.
Okay.
It basically was like in light of what what they said yesterday. We're shutting down the office except for the like payments department or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about that. Those payments will still be processed, but we'll all be working from home.
Mm-hmm. Surprised I only just did that.
I mean, me too. Like, I thought that today was an interesting day to get that email finally. Which sort of suggests to me that they've just been like roughing it.
Yeah, I got that email like last Friday from my managers, I want to say.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But then I also like spoke to them and they're like, we're still getting self-tape requests.
Really?
Which to me is like, what is still casting? What is still like, yeah, gotta keep, but maybe that's like, yeah, you have to look forward. I don't know.
I mean, I can vaguely imagine if it's like a Hulu show or something. They're not on any kind of like tight time frame or Netflix, and postponing it causes like minimal disruption because it's not like all of their eggs are in that basket.
Right. Okay.
It's like they have 7 trillion shows. So they have time to like just sort of doggy paddle and continue like some aspect of casting and just be like, or continue like the aspects that they can continue.
Yeah.
And then just pick up the rest when.
I guess so. Maybe they can get ahead on some things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do, maybe.
I'm not really sure what the networks are gonna do because they like time matters.
Right. I think like some shows have been like released early.
Yes.
I wonder what this is gonna do for the industry in general. Because yeah, it's gonna mean like if and when everything does go back to normal, suddenly it's gonna be like I don't know. I don't know exactly what's gonna happen. But my manager was also like, at least he was like, at least this industry isn't going to go anywhere. If anything, it's going to become even more valuable in times like these.
I was just thinking about like being on set and how much touching there is. Like how much closeness from a very like logistical.
It's also a mess. I mean, it's not that bad. Like, dirty coffee cups. Like they try to keep that thing clean, but it's kind of,
you can't
dirty hands and candy bowls.
Like I was trying to imagine in what it would mean to try and shoot something while observing distancing, and there's no universe in which that could happen. Because of our conversation yesterday of like, why can't they just stream this about the course?
Oh yeah.
I was kind of thinking like, what are things that you kind of have to be
there for?
Do you remember the blanket?
What?
The blanket?
Yeah, on the couch. Yes.
Gonna need both. Both here.
I'm not really weak. It's
a weighted blanket.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like that's just it. I wonder if though these practices will like extend beyond this outbreak.
I mean, supposedly there will be like ups and downs, like something will resurface, something meaning like the numbers will go up again. There'll be sort of like a wave pattern. So there's been some suggestion on some of the things that I've listened to that they will relax things a bit, but then we might have to go back into it to flatten it. And then we'll relax things a bit, and then we might have to go into it to flatten it. Like aftershocks. But I don't know. I think, everyone's speculating.
I'm just distracted. Do your industry talk is... I don't think I revealed that. I think that's fine. Sorry, I'm interacting with a text message. Okay. You were saying it's going to go to peaks, like we're going to contain it, and then there's going to be more outbreaks. Is that what you were saying?
Possibly. Do you want to pause?
What? I can't just like read my messages? Okay. I'll do this later. I'm sorry. Let's continue. Okay.
We don't have... Okay.
No. Let's continue. Chapter 13. That same night, having taken leave of the Minister of War, Bolkonsky set off to rejoin the army, not knowing where he would find it and fearing to be captured by the French on the way to Krems.
In Brunn, everybody attached to the court was packing up, and the heavy baggage was already being dispatched to Olmutz. Near Hetzelsdorf, Prince Andrew struck the high road along which the Russian army was moving with great haste and in the greatest disorder. The road was so obstructed with carts that it was impossible to get by in a carriage. Prince Andrew took a horse and a Cossack from a Cossack commander. What do you mean, took a Cossack? From a Cossack commander, and hungry and weary, making his way past the baggage wagons, rode in search of the commander-in-chief and of his own luggage. Very sinister reports of the position of the army reached him as he went along, and the appearance of the troops in their disorderly flight confirmed these rumors.
Cette armée russe que lors de l'Angleterre a transporté des extrémités de l'univers, nous allons lui faire éprouver le même sort.
That Russian army which has been brought from the ends of the earth by English gold we shall cause to share the same fate.
He remembered these words in Bonaparte's address to his army at the beginning of the campaign, and they awoke in him astonishment at the and a hope of glory. And should there be nothing left, he thought, well, if me, I shall do it no worse than others.
Looked with disdain at the endless, confused mass of detachments, carts, guns, artillery, and again baggage wagons and vehicles of all kind overtaking one another and blocking the muddy road, 3 and sometimes 4 abreast. From all sides, behind and before, as far as ear could reach, there were the rattle of wheels, the creaking of carts and gun carriages, the tramp of horses, the crack of whips, shouts, the urging of horses, and the swearing of soldiers, orderlies, and officers. All along the sides of the road, fallen horses were to be seen, some flayed, some not, and broken down carts beside which solitary soldiers sat waiting for something, and again soldiers straggling from their companies, crowds of whom set off to the neighboring villages or returned from them dragging sheep, fowls, hay, and bulging sacks. At each ascent or descent of the road, the crowds were yet denser and the din of shouting more incessant. Soldiers floundering knee-deep in mud pushed the guns and wagons themselves. Whips cracked, hoofs slipped, hoofs again. Hoofs. Traces broke and lungs were strained with shouting. The officers directing the march rode backward and forward between the carts. Their voices were but feebly heard amid the uproar, and one saw by their faces that they despaired of the possibility of checking this disorder.
Here's our dear Orthodox Russian army, thought Bolkonsky, recalling Bilibin's words.
Wishing to find out where the commander-in-chief was, he rode up to a convoy. Directly opposite to him came a strange one-horse vehicle, evidently rigged up by soldiers out of any available materials, and looking like something between a cart, a cabriolet, and a caleche. Whatever. A cart. A soldier was driving, and a woman enveloped in shawls sat behind the apron under the leather hood of the vehicle. Prince Andrew rode up and was just putting his question to a soldier when his attention was diverted by the desperate shrieks of the woman in the vehicle. An officer in charge of transport was beating the soldier who was driving the woman's vehicle for trying to get ahead of others, and the strokes of his whip fell on the apron of the equipage. The woman screamed piercingly. Seeing Prince Andrew, she leaned out from behind the apron and, waving her thin arms from under the woolen shawl, cried,
Mr. Aide-de-camp! Mr. Aide-de-camp! For heaven's sakes, protect me! What would become of us?
Is she Russian or Austrian?
I don't know, I decided to go with this. I am the wife of the doctor, the Savage hussar! They won't let us pass! We are left behind and have lost our people!
I'll flatten you into a pancake, shouted the angry officer to the soldier. Turn back with your slut.
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Aide-de-camp, help me! What does it all mean? Screamed the doctor's wife.
Kindly let this cart pass. Don't you see it's a woman? Said Prince Andrew, riding up to the officer.
The officer glanced at him, and without replying, turned again to the soldier. I'll teach you to push on. Back!
Let them pass, I tell you, repeated Prince Andrew, compressing his lips.
And who are you? Cried the officer, turning on him with tipsy rage. Who are you? Are you in command here? I am commander here, not you. Go back or I'll flatten you into a pancake, repeated he. This expression evidently pleased him.
It pleases me too. That was a nice snub for the little aide-de-camp, came a voice from behind.
Prince Andrew saw that the officer was in that state of senseless, tipsy rage when a man does not know what he is saying. He saw that his championship of the doctor's wife in her queer trap might expose him to what he dreaded more than anything in the world, to ridicule. But his instinct urged him on. Before the officer finished his sentence, Prince Andrew, his face distorted with fury, rode up to him and raised his riding whip.
He's a narcissist. Kindly let them pass.
The officer flourished his arm and hastily rode away.
It's all the fault of these fellows on the staff that there's this disorder, he muttered. Do as you like.
Prince Andrew, without lifting his eyes, rode hastily away from the doctor's wife, who was calling him her deliverer, and recalling with a sense of disgust the minutest details of this humiliating scene. He galloped on to the village, where he was told that the commander-in-chief was.
On reaching the village, he dismounted and went to the nearest house, intending to rest, if but for a moment, eat something, and try to sort out the stinging and tormenting thoughts that confused his mind. He was thinking as he went up to the window of the first house, when a familiar voice called him by name.
He turned round. Nesvitsky's handsome face looked out the little window. Nesvitsky, moving his moist lips as he chewed something, and flourishing his arm, called him to enter.
Bolkonsky! Bolkonsky, do you hear, eh? Come quick! He shouted.
Entering the house, Prince Andrew saw Nesvitsky and another adjutant having something to eat. They hastily turned round to him, asking if he had any news. On their familiar faces, he read agitation and alarm. This was particularly noticeable on Nesvitsky's usually laughing countenance.
Where is the commander-in-chief? Asked Bolkonsky.
Here, in that house, answered the adjutant.
Well, is it true that it's peace and capitulation? Asked Nesvitsky.
I was going to ask you. I know nothing except that it was all I could do to get here.
And we, my dear boy, it's terrible. I was wrong to laugh at Mac. We're getting it still worse, said Nesvitsky. But sit down and have something to eat.
You won't be able to find either your baggage or anything else now, Prince. And God only knows where your man Peter is, said the adjutant.
Where are headquarters?
We're to spend the night in Znaim.
Well, I have got all I need into packs for 2 horses, said Nesvitsky. They've made up splendid packs for me, fit to cross the Bohemian mountains with. It's a bad lookout, old fellow, but what's the matter with you? You must be ill to shiver like that, he added, noticing that Prince Andrew winced as at an electric shock.
It's nothing, replied Prince Andrew.
He had just remembered his recent encounter with the doctor's wife and the convoy officer.
What is the commander-in-chief doing here? He asked.
I can't make out at all, said Nesvitsky.
Well, all I can make out is that everything is abominable. Abominable, quite abominable, said Prince Andrew. And he went off to the house where the commander-in-chief was.
Passing by Kutuzov's carriage and the exhausted saddle horses of his suite, with their Cossacks who were talking loudly together, Prince Andrew entered the passage. Kutuzov himself, he was told, was in the house with Prince Bagration again. I don't like this guy. And Weyrother was the Austrian general who had succeeded Schmidt. In the passage, little Kozlovsky was squatting on his heels in front of a clerk. The clerk, with cuffs turned up, was hastily writing at a tub turned bottom upwards. Kozlovsky's face looked worn. He, too, had evidently not slept all night. He glanced at Prince Andrew, and did not even nod to him.
Second line. Have you written it? He continued dictating to the clerk. The Kiev Grenadiers, Podolian.
It's Kiev.
Oh.
Remember we learned that from the whole Ukrainian impeachment thing? Okay.
Kiev.
One of the funniest things was that all the diplomats were like, Kiev, blah, 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 Kiev. And so there was this weird ripple where all the news people suddenly were calling it Kiev, even though nobody had been up until that point, and some of them acknowledged it and were like, apparently we've been saying it wrong for decades, and other people didn't. They just pretended they'd already known it was Kiev. I don't know. It's very funny.
That's great. I missed that.
One can't write so fast, Your Honor, said the clerk, glancing angrily and disrespectfully at Kozlovsky. What's his problem?
Oh, my goodness. Through the door came the sounds of Kutuzov's voice, excited and dissatisfied, interrupted by another, an unfamiliar voice. From the sound of these voices, the inattentive way Kozlovsky looked at him, the disrespectful manner of the exhausted clerk, the fact that the clerk and Kozlovsky were squatted by the floor by a tub so near to the commander-in-chief, and from the noisy laughter of the Cossacks holding the horses near the window, Prince Andrew felt that something important and disastrous was about to happen.
He turned to Kozlovsky with urgent questions.
Immediately, Prince, said Kozlovsky. Dispositions for I know what you mean. Do you think it's bagration?
Maybe.
Sure.
It's just so unlikely that the rules of spelling and pronunciation would extend a proper noun. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean I couldn't even get it around my brain to say it in a different way. I was like, what does this say?
What else could it be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about capitulation?
Nothing of the sort. Orders are issued for a battle.
Prince Andrew moved toward the door from whence voices were heard. Wait. So Kozlovsky's we're gonna go into battle?
Yeah.
Kozlovsky?
I don't think we've met him, have we?
I don't remember.
I think he's new.
Okay.
But I might be honest.
My friend was like, how's Shay Dostoevsky? And I was like, we live in Tolstoy Tower.
Seriously, not all Russians are created
She was
equal.
like, whatever, they look alike. Anyway. Prince Andrew moved toward the door from whence voices were heard. Just as he was going to open it, the sound ceased. The door opened, and Kutuzov, with his eagle nose and puffy face, appeared in the doorway. Prince Andrew stood right in front of Kutuzov, but the expression of the commander-in-chief's one sound eye showed him to be so preoccupied with thoughts and anxieties as to be oblivious of his presence. He looked straight at his adjutant's face without recognizing him.
Well, have you finished? Said he to Kozlovsky.
One moment, Your Excellency.
Bagration, a gaunt middle-aged man of medium height with a firm, impassive face of Oriental type, came out after the commander-in-chief.
I have the honor to present myself, repeated Prince Andrew rather loudly, handing Kutuzov an envelope.
Ah, from Vienna. Very good. Later.
Kutuzov went out into the porch with Bagration.
That's what we're sticking to.
I hope he's not a main character. I don't want to keep saying
I don't want to say his name. With Mr. B. Well, goodbye, Prince, said he to Bagration. My blessing, and may Christ be with you in your great endeavor.
His face suddenly softened and tears came into his eyes. With his left hand, he drew Bagration toward him, and with his right, on which he wore a ring, he made the sign of the cross over him with a gesture evidently habitual, offering his puffy cheek that Bagration kissed him on the neck instead. Whoa.
Wow, these sensitive men.
Yeah.
Christ be with you, Kutuzov repeated and went toward his carriage. Get in with me, said he to Bolkonsky.
Whoa. Your Excellency, I should like to be of use here. Allow me to remain with Prince Bagration's detachment.
Get in, said Kutuzov. Okay, I'm sorry. And noticing that Bolkonsky still delayed, he added, I need good officers myself. Need them myself.
Whoa.
Need
them. For himself.
Myself.
They got into the carriage and drove for a few minutes in silence.
The sexual tension. Still much, much before us, he said, as if with an old man's penetration. He understood. He understood all that was passing in Bolkonsky's mind. If a 10th part of his detachment returns, I shall thank God, he added, as if speaking to himself.
Prince Andrew glanced at Kutuzov's face only a foot distant from him, and involuntarily noticed the carefully washed seams of the scar near his temple, where an Ismail bullet had pierced his skull and the empty eye socket. Yes, he has a right to speak so calmly of those men's death, thought Bolkonsky.
Wait. Pierce his skull? Is he missing an eye?
Yeah.
Was that established previously?
His one working eye?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in part of a long run-on.
Okay. That is why I beg to be sent to that detachment, he said.
Kutuzov did not reply. He seemed to have forgotten what he had been saying, and sat plunged in thought. 5 minutes later, gently swaying on the soft springs of the carriage, he turned to Prince Andrew. There was not a trace of agitation on his face. With delicate irony, he questioned Prince Andrew about the details of his interview with the Emperor, about the remarks he had heard at court concerning the Krem's affair, and about some ladies they both knew. As you were, Kutuzov.
Kutuzov. Do you think it's Kutuzov? Like, when is it? When is it? Je?
I don't know when it's je.
Okay.
Is Kutuzov? We really should have made like a poster.
That would be good.
And then like,
Be like,
who's this again?
that's him.
Yeah. Say for us. 14.
14. Stop checking your email.
Who?
Me.
I need to check my.
They found us.
They'll be here in 2 days. Quick, grab the portmanteau. We cannot be without it. I'm just thinking about getting him to off.
Really? Interesting.
Then I was like, one dish is $20.
That's a lot. For what is it they have?
It's quite large. They're quite large.
Schnitzel.
Quite large, yeah. That's what I want.
You know when you're just craving schnitzel?
It's happening right now.
Totally. It happens all the time.
Listen, some people ate meat once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes have impulses that are like kind of in that direction, and then you think, what is like that? Or what will tend to that?
Is that why you like burgers?
Probably. I wasn't a big burger person before. But like clockwork, once a month at least, I'd be like, red meat, and then wouldn't think of it the rest of the month. Just like, and maybe it's like iron, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was iron levels or what, but there was like a strong bodily prompt. And yeah, the couple of times I've felt it, I get an impossible beyond or whatever.
Is it like you crave the texture or the taste?
The taste?
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, I think we've talked about this. Have you ever drunk non-alcoholic beer?
We have talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay. It's this weird feeling of like, yeah, it's like beer, except without the beer. Like there's something. I mean, I don't think that when I eat my fake burgers. I'm like, this is like that.
But there's something similar to that.
Yeah. So it's like enough like it, but it's not. Yeah.
And I'm usually like, this tastes too much like what I imagine it tastes like.
I thought you liked it.
Can we like pull back on it?
I thought you liked it.
I'm kind of grossed out by it, but I find it satisfying, probably because there's like protein in it, and nothing in my diet is protein. So I find it satisfying, but at the same time, I'm like,
slimy yet satisfying.
I'm kind of relieved when I finished eating it. Because it takes something.
Jesus.
They just did a really good job. It's a little disconcerting. I'm talking about the Beyond Burger.
Okay,
It's because it's juicy. It's juicy.
And what do you imagine that to be?
I mean, like, they obviously did that for a reason. They're trying to... What do I imagine it to be, actually?
Yeah, so, like, assuming it's meat, what do you think that's happening?
I think it's the same thing as, like, desserts that look like savory foods, and it messes with your head. I think the same thing is going on when you're eating a Beyond Burger.
I wanted to just make the disclaimer that I have only really eaten Impossibles.
Oh, right, okay.
So I don't know what the difference is, or if there is a difference. I
don't know. And I think it would be, obviously people have tested them side by side.
Mm-hmm.
I would be need to try that out side by side.
Why? You said you don't like one of them. Why would you want to eat two of them?
But I like...
So that thing that you're talking about is kind of like the meat thing.
Yeah,
you're like,
that's
there's
why I asked
something
about
in
the
it that
texture,
I like.
because I can also, I'm like, it's unlike anything I've ever eaten before.
Interesting.
I'm like, oh, okay. this is what people are craving.
So it's chicken.
Yeah.
It's like it's a, yeah. Thought a lot about it because Ishan was given chicken yesterday, and today was like he's gone chicken crazy. So he got his bowl of food. He was like, "Where's the chicken? Where's the chicken? Where's the chicken? Where's the chicken? Where's the next chicken?" So just
That was the first time. That wasn't the first time
maybe
he ate meat, was it?
no, because my sister, when he was very little, also deliberately cycled through everything because there's some idea that that he might develop food allergies. Like you should give them a little bit of a bunch of different things.
Okay.
So like that's the reason she definitely gave him egg and stuff at some like when he was a little younger.
Yeah.
But he still eats almost only. He's obsessed with yogurt. And I think that a lot of times they get cashew nut yogurt and stuff like that now, but that's another thing I maybe miss more than anything else.
Yogurt. Interesting. I miss frozen yogurt sometimes.
This is your first one.
Yogurt. I like plain yogurt. This is what my dad used to make me. Or did my dad? I think my dad used to love yogurt. I used to take like plain yogurt with honey. It's the only time I liked honey. Because like the yogurt and honey, the cold would affect the honey, so it would get kind of like hard. And I just like that texture.
Yeah, actually, just today when I was like, "Oh, my stomach feels weird," I was like, "Only I could eat rice and
Oh, you're different.
It's the like calm your stomach, and then also from my childhood, like all the wiring and then the actual probiotic things.
Yeah.
My mom, for the longest time after I went vegan, was like, "Why don't you just make one exception? Just one exception." And she was always trying to say, "Still eat yogurt."
Mm-hmm. I didn't think of it like with yogurt and Indian food too.
That's like my whole context for
that. Yeah, I love like the creaminess and the coolness mixed with like the spicy savoriness of the other dishes. Yeah,
it's the best. And like every good South Indian ends, yes, with rice and corn. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe donuts are essential services.
Chapter 14. I'm going to keep going.
Please do. I'm going to do something.
There's a long... You tell me when you want to jump back in.
I will tell you.
Okay. Chapter 14. On November 1st, Kutuzov had received, through a spy, news that the army he commanded was in an almost hopeless position. The spy reported that the French, after crossing the bridge at Vienna, were advancing in immense force upon Kutuzov's line of communication with the troops that were arriving from Russia. If Kutuzov decided to remain at Krems, Napoleon's army of 150,000 men would cut him off completely and surround his exhausted army of 40,000, and he would find himself in the position of Mack at Ulm. If Kutuzov decided to abandon the road connecting him with the troops arriving from Russia, he would have to march with no road into unknown parts of the Bohemian mountains, defending himself against superior forces of the enemy, and abandoning all hope of a junction with Buxhowden. If Kutuzov decided to retreat along the road from Krems to Olmutz, to unite with the troops arriving from Russia, he risked being stalled on that road by the French, who had crossed the Vienna Bridge, and encumbered by his baggage and transport, having to accept battle on the march against an enemy 3 times as strong, who would hem him in from 2 sides. Kutuzov chose this latter course. The French, the spy reported, having crossed the Vienna Bridge, were advancing by forced marches towards Znaim, which lay 66 miles off on the line of Kutuzov's retreat. If he reached the army, to let the French follow him at Znaim meant the exposure of his whole army to a disgrace such as that of Ulm, or to utter destruction. But to forestall the French with his whole army was impossible. The road for the French from Vienna to Znaim was shorter and better than the road
Hmm.
for the Russians from Krems to Znaim.
The night he received the news, Kutuzov sent Bagratian's vanguard, 4,000 strong, to the right across the hills from the Krems-Znaim to the Vienna-Znaim road. Bagration was to Bagration. We're like doing such backflips to make it not
I
Asian.
know we're like making it work. We're gonna make it work.
Was to make this march without resting and to halt facing Vienna with Znaim to his rear, and if he succeeded in forestalling the French, he was to delay them as long as possible. Kutuzov himself, with all his transport, took the road to Znaim.
Marching 30 miles that stormy night across roadless hills with his hungry, ill-shod soldiers, and losing a third of his men as stragglers by the way, Bagration came out on the Vienna-Znaim road at Hollabrunn a few hours ahead of the French, who were approaching Hollabrunn from Vienna. Kutuzov, with his transport, had still to march for some days before he could reach Znaim. Hence, Bagration, with his 4,000 hungry, exhausted men, would have to detain for days the whole enemy army that came upon him at Hollabrunn.
This is the stuff I check out for.
Right. Which I think guys are like, oh, the strategy. Oh, what's good happen?
Oh, they...
I think so. Men love a good strategy.
It might be my nephew. Oh, it's my father. Hi, dads.
Are you starting up?
We are. It's happening.
Oh, right now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to check whether you had searched for those texts, that text
Oh,
paper.
SHIG.
Okay, not now then.
Okay, we have till July.
Okay. Very funny. Bye.
Sorry.
Cameo.
Problem child today.
It's okay. What is that? Oh, let's finish this chapter.
Chapped. Yes, let's finish the chapped.
What's happening? Okay, right. We don't really know.
Everyone's tired.
The armies are like, this is what's it called? That board game. Risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I never played it. Well, let's have all of your wisdom from that one time come to bear on this
It's
situation.
all about Russia.
Is it?
Yes, it's massive.
Oh.
And you can attack from both sides.
And it's full of oil.
Is it? I think it's all about getting Russia. That's all I remember. Good story.
Great story.
The success, sure. Yeah, but a freak of fate made the impossible possible. The success of the trick that had placed the Vienna Bridge in the hands of the French without a fight led Murat to try to deceive Kutuzov in a similar way. Meeting Bagration's weak detachment on the Znaim road, he supposed it to be Kutuzov's whole army. To be able to crush it absolutely, he awaited the arrival of the rest of the troops who were on their way from Vienna, and with this object offered a 3 days truce on condition that both armies should remain in position without moving. Murat declared that negotiations for peace were already proceeding, and that he therefore offered this truce to avoid unnecessary bloodshed.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, he's like, oh, no, don't not worry. We are offering peace.
And then it's like,
Yes, exactly. Count Nostitz, the Austrian general occupying the advanced posts, believed Murat's emissary and retired, leaving Bagration's division exposed. Another emissary rode to the Russian line to announce the peace negotiations and to offer the Russian army the 3 days truce. Bagration, I know, I'm like trying so hard, replied that he was not authorized either to accept or refuse a truce, and sent his adjutant to Kutuzov to report the offer he had received.
a truce was Kutuzov's sole chance of gaining time, giving Bagration's exhausted troops some rest and letting the transport and heavies advance if by stage near a time. The offer of a truce gave the only and a quite unexpected chance of saving the army. On receiving the news, he immediately dispatched Adjutant General Winsingerode, who was in attendance on him, to the enemy camp. Winsingerode. How would you say that?
I'd say it Vincingerode.
Vincingerode.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Was not merely to agree to the truce, but also to offer terms of capitulation. And meanwhile, Kutuzov sent his adjutants back to hasten to the utmost the movements of the baggage trains of the entire army along the Kremsheim road. Bagratian's exhausted and hungry detachment, which alone covered this movement of the transport and of the whole army, had to remain stationary in face of an enemy 8 times as strong as itself.
Kutuzov's expectations that the proposals of capitulation, which were in no way binding, might give time for part of the transport to pass, and also that Murat's mistake would very soon be discovered, proved correct. As soon as Bonaparte, who was at Schönbrunn, 16 miles from Hollabrunn, received Murat's dispatch with the proposal of a truce and a capitulation, he detected a ruse and wrote the following letter to Murat.
Schönbrunn, 25th Brumaire, 1805, at 8 o'clock in the morning, to Prince Murat.
I cannot find words to express to you my displeasure. You command only my advance guard, and have no right to arrange an armistice without my order. You are causing me to lose the fruits of a campaign. Break the armistice immediately and march on the enemy. Inform him that the general who signed that capitulation had no right to do so, and that no one but the Emperor of Russia has that right.
Whoa.
Cool.
The word of Napoleon, finally, on page 367.
Finally, he arrives.
If, however, the Emperor of Russia ratifies that convention, I will ratify it. But it is only a trick. March on. Destroy the Russian army. You are in a position to seize its baggage and artillery.
The Russian Emperor's aide-de-camp is an impostor. Officers are nothing when they have no powers. This one had none. The Austrians let themselves be tricked at the crossing of the Vienna Bridge. You are letting yourself be tricked by an aide-de-camp of the Emperor. Napoleon.
Bonaparte's adjutant rode full gallop with this menacing letter to Murat. Bonaparte himself, not trusting to his generals, moved with all the guards to the field of battle, afraid of letting a ready victim escape. And Bagratian's 4,000 men merrily lighted campfires, dried and warmed themselves, cooked their porridge for the first time for 3 days, and not one of them knew or imagined what was in store for him.
Oh no. Oh,
Napoleon's gonna come and eat them for breakfast.
Oh dear. But not yet. Truly, our heroes have to live for a while still, right?
I don't know. I don't know this world.
Only rules here. Prince Andrew has to survive for a while.
He's got a lot of living to do.
He's got to save Russia.
He's got a lot of dreams to chase. He's got a lot of fantasies to...
Prince Andrew. Okay.
Okay.
What? We have a question. You can write your questions on the chat, please.
Are we even looking at the chat?
I don't think there's been any.
Listen.
Old school
I hear
porridge,
chatter.
I imagine, was quite similar to this porridge that we know today.
Oat?
Probably oat.
You know, peas porridge is basically dal, so...
Peas porridge?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of it.
What do you mean?
What's peas porridge?
Peas porridge. It's like a...
I really like this porridge.
Who doesn't know peas porridge? I only know it from, like, childhood nursery rhymes, so, like, I thought that was... They probably got around the whole globe, but I guess not. Some like it hot, some like it cold. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. So something to your... Does anybody know this?
Peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old.
Yeah.
Right.
Which really crossed my wires because I thought of it as a porridge my whole young life, when I heard it as like just a meaningless sort of rhyme, I connected it to like oat porridge or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, as an adult later, I was like, I finally figured it out, or someone told me. Either way, peas.
When you like
Making a porridge from peas.
right, when you're like, I'll have porridge, and then you have a bowl of soup.
That's not porridge.
Although
Although there was that diner near us that closed, and they had a kind of porridge, a mushroom porridge. Remember this?
yes, there was a Vietnamese place that had like
Savory porridge.
so it's like a rice porridge. I never tried it.
It was good. What?
I'm sure it was good.
You never tried it, but you're looking very suspicious.
I'm suspect.
Why is that?
Just like a savory porridge.
Like a savory thing with rice?
I guess so, like a curry. I don't know. I think I need to know what things are.
So you can like file them in the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
No, you're right. Maybe it's good. It's like that thing of
I
like
mean, I
when you
ate it.
interact with something new for the first time, you're like, I don't know if I like this. This is just a new thing that I have no idea where to place. So like porridge to me is sweet. Then have a savory porridge, I'm like, is it soup? What's happening? And I feel this way about gazpacho too. I'm like, what am I eating right now? Is it a smoothie? What's happening?
It's not a smoothie.
It's basically tomato smoothie.
Not if it's well made. But doing it with tomatoes makes it not a smoothie.
You can have smoothies with like sweet potatoes.
I could have smoothie with couch.
Yes, you could.
So then the word smoothie means nothing.
True.
So then why are you so worried if it's a smoothie?
Because I know what a smoothie is. And I know what soup is.
How can you know what a smoothie is if you can have a couch smoothie?
I don't know. This is making me rethink my smoothies now. Are they soup? They're more vegetables than fruit.
That's basically a soup. That's a gazpacho.
Oh no. It's like a powdery gazpacho.
I wonder what you put in those things.
What?
What do you put in there?
I don't know. What do
You
you
put
mean there?
bananas
Bananas
and kale.
and kale and celeries.
Celery!
I know.
Okay.
But it's because of
The medical medium.
the medical medium says that celery is good for inflammation, but I can't afford celery juice. Who can afford that? So I just try to put celery in things.
Okay. Those are the 3 ingredients?
Yeah, and then I have this powder that I really don't like. I really don't like it, but I keep putting it in there. And it's got like matcha and spirulina and lion's mane.
Oh, like a green powder?
I really don't like it. It ruins anything it touches.
Why do you consume it?
I don't know. This is like my Rasa coffee. I have this like non-coffee coffee that tastes so terrible. So terrible. I don't even know how to describe the taste. It's just not good. I'm sorry, Rasa. If you're watching this, it's not good. And I've tried it with milk.
Probably watching.
It's not good. It tastes nothing like coffee.
It's still in the fridge though, from I don't know 1 year ago.
You know, like, have you ever gotten like weird herb mixtures from the acupuncturist? And it's full of like beetle dust or something. It tastes like that. It tastes like I'm drinking beetle dust. It's making me want some. I have some in the fridge.
You want it?
I want it to not like it and be like, but I'm taking my medicine.
I was gonna say, there's something here that like, yeah, why would you persist in, because if I really don't like a thing, I don't.
But it tastes so bad, it must be good for me.
That's like, oh, it burns, it's working. How is it like that?
Like in a smoothie. I imagine it tastes bad. Then it would make me reconsider, is couch good for me? Should all of us have more couch in our diets?
Wasn't like sawdust a main ingredient in like McDonald's recipes or something? This sounds like a thing that
I
happened.
think like hot dogs. This does sound familiar.
No, hot dogs, that would be like acceptable compared to what it actually was.
What was it actually?
It was like
And you're
sawdust
saying
and
was,
rats.
as in it's like not that anymore. Are we sure?
I mean, there was a whole like scandal about it, so like I think they did address it.
What was the? Again, this is like where I don't know my sources. The meat soup. You know what I'm talking about? What was the documentary that showed that? And there's a specific word for it. It's like when they're like processing chicken, they just like put a ton of chickens, and then like to clean it, they like put it in this like soup, and it's disgusting. And
I don't remember
that's
this.
like
At some point I did what?
Okay. Sluice? Is that what it's called?
That's a word.
Yeah. It's disgusting. And it like has like feces and just like disgusting things all in it. So it like gets like put all into the chicken. Yeah.
The chicken. It's so grotesque what we do. I stopped watching those documentaries after stopping eating meat and dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? And I almost never feel like this because I feel like I have to subject myself to the learnings and to the like truth that's actually really happening. But I was like, I don't need to watch more animal slaughter.
I sometimes just put those on if I have food cravings.
That's
and then you
really
put that on.
demented.
You don't want to eat it.
That's really messed up.
I don't do that often.
Okay.
I think that's like their only purpose. Well, I don't know.
Just eat the thing that you're saying for.
I mean, sometimes I do that too.
I mean, or is it like donuts or something just like so objectively not that great that
it's like I'll be like, oh, I should leave the house right now and go get a bag of chips.
You should.
There's something about like it's really sad to me about getting in the car to satisfy with that specific craving. If it's in the house, that's one thing. But there's like something kind of maniacal about being like, gotta go get it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I also sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. I need ice cream now, so I'm gonna go.
I think there's also something at the car. Like if I were to like walk to the corner store, that's a different thing.
Huh.
Did you say corner store mistake? Anyway, if I were like to walk there, okay, all right. Something about like driving 10 minutes to the grocery store for some stupid craving. I feel a little disheartened about myself in that whole process. So instead, just watch Cowspiracy.
Cowspiracy is so good. So good.
So good. I can't remember what happens, but it's good.
You can't?
No, because they all blend in my head.
This one's really, I think of it as being actually very distinct and different from all the other. Yeah. I know what you mean. Like a lot of those things do blend together, but this one's different.
And why it makes it distinct?
Have you seen it?
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember.
It's this guy who basically starts out by him being like, oh, I recycle, I compost, I do all this stuff, and I wanted to like see if there was more I could do to reduce my carbon footprint. And then he started looking into what he could do, but quickly discovered that the most obvious choices of carbon, something that's environmentally conscious, is supporting or not supporting the food,
Yeah,
the food lobby.
it's interesting.
The like
More and
beef
more.
lobby and the. So he basically goes around asking and confronting people like Greenpeace and the American Cancer Association and stuff like that.
That's right.
The supposed
Like,
good
it's
guys
right.
being like, why are you not letting people know
Yeah.
that this is. And then the producers drop out in the middle of filming, and then I think Leonardo DiCaprio. Why do we always end up talking about him? Leonardo DiCaprio turns up and then agrees to pay for the rest of the production. Like he joins as a producer to like bail them out.
I need to rewatch this. I don't remember that part.
That's like that's like the whole thing. That's why I was saying
It's
really
all about
different.
Leo DiCaprio.
No, it's really different than.
I remember. So it's the one where he's like, "Why is the Diabetes Association? Why do they have recipes on their site for like beef stew or whatever it is? I don't know what it is."
Yeah,
it's that one. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just don't remember the Leo thing involved.
Because at some point he's like, "I've asked too many questions," and like the producers like drop out basically.
How high up does it go? That's probably really changed. I find it refreshing to meet people who now more and more are saying that they're vegetarians or vegans just for environmental reasons.
It's like the obvious thing. Because so he basically was like, I can't believe the like environmentalists have been allowing us as people to think that, oh, you've recycled your thing and you take 5-minute showers and whatever. When there are all these people who are willing to do the thing, to make whatever sacrifice, but they're missing information about how much pollution and stuff is caused by animal agriculture.
Yeah, I also think there's like a ton of misinformation out there about like, oh, but it's like grass-fed meat, or like, no, they're fish farms, so like it's okay. No one really understands what the hell is going on. So much of it is just based on trust, and I kind of was just like, just don't go there. Like, just be better safe than sorry, right? Stay home, don't eat meat.
I mean, red meat was added to the like FDA's list of carcinogens.
Ooh.
It's like alongside smoking.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was a big news event in my Apple News sifter.
Carcinogens.
Yep.
Oy. Well,
I'm hungry.
Okay, we're going now.
We are.
Go have some red meat, guys.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't